the past few weeks, we've talked about some rare items within Call of Duty, whether that be in-game items or camos in particular, like the last video we did. Whichever it may be, it's something that you guys seem to have an interest in, seeing a little bit more of these things that may have been lost to the test of time, or that you may have never even noticed because they were so rare and not many people had them. So that said, I wanted to kind of take a look at this as a little follow-up and maybe even set up a series here on this. So if you guys want to see more of this, of course, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you guys have anything you want to add, feel free to let me know also in the comments and we can add it on for a follow-up video to this even. But today I want to take a look at 6 more of the rarest items within Call of Duty history, not just limiting it to a certain 3 to 4 year time frame like we did in the past, but instead taking a look at the rarest items overall. So I got a lot up on deck here that we're probably going to break into a couple of different episodes just so I don't have to keep you for a half hour to 40 minutes at a time going through every single item that I have and then whatever you guys may have in the follow-up. But today I want to take a look at 6 particular things with you guys that you may not have ever even known existed, you might have totally forgotten about, or whatever the case may be, but 6 of the rarest items within Call of Duty history. So that's it, let's just jump right into it. Number 1 up this list, we're going to start out with probably the heaviest hitter here out of this, even though it might not be one that is all that important to a lot of players, because it comes down to a calling card, or I guess a couple of calling cards across a couple of different titles. So this one spans not only World War II, but also Infinite Warfare as well as Black Ops 3 the past couple of years back, obviously. So that said, Call of Duty World War II is the one that was brought up in a recent video of mine, and I think that I've seen this one less than any of the other ones out there, including the Infinite Warfare one and also the Black Ops 3 one, but this is the calling card for the Activision ambassadors within the subsequent titles and each year's game. Now previously, the Activision ambassador program was only open to around 50 to 100 people, depending on when the player was actually accepted into the program. So that said, in terms of just sheer numbers, there's not many of these to go around. While we take a look at things like as of recently, we took a look at the Spectrum Camo, that was something that had 5,000 codes cut up in half so that you had them only available on 360 and then Xbox One as well, so 2,500 per console. But that said, when you take a look at this even, 50 to 100, depending on the time of when the player was accepted, that is definitely way smaller of a sample size here for players that you may encounter with that calling card. Now, if you wanted to take part in this program yourself and maybe get some rewards in the future for things that will come out with, say, Black Ops 4 potentially, there is an actual application and registration you can go through via Activision's website, but that's something that, again, there is no guarantee that you'll actually get in on it, and that's something that is still a very limited sample size for the amount of players that are ambassadors for the Activision brand. But that said, that is one of the slight perks here out of this. There is also the option to end up getting some Call of Duty merchandise, some Activision merchandise and things like that. But out of this, in terms of in-game items, it actually became one of the rarest in Call of Duty history. Now after these, in no real particular order, we're gonna keep going on here for the next one. But next up on deck here, I have the Mountain Dew gear set from Advanced Warfare. For those of you guys that remember, Advanced Warfare offered a ton of customization, down to the boots, the knee pads, the gloves, the helmet, the exosuit, all of that could be customized, and of course there were things in-game via supply drops, but at the time of launch, there really wasn't all that much because we didn't see all those extracurricular camos and exosuit sets and everything like that added in. Those got added in a few months after the launch and, of course, progressed as the game continually went further into the life cycle of the game. But when we first ended up getting the game at launch, the Mountain Dew gear set is something you might have seen, but after that, maybe not so much. And it's actually been a while since we last saw a Call of Duty Mountain Dew promotion. I think the last one was Black Ops 3, but this gear set was a promotion with Mountain Dew and Call of Duty that each redemption code that you'd get from the properly labeled bottle caps of Mountain Dew ended up giving you something you could take over to your Call of Duty accounts, and it didn't guarantee the full set to my knowledge. If I remember correctly, it gave you bits and pieces, so I know that I had a couple that I got, I think the helmet, the gloves, and so therefore you ended up having the opportunity to get duplicates, but it was something that if you ended up getting the full set, well, you of course were kitted out in Mountain Dew gear. And while personally I wasn't one of those people that ended up getting fortunate enough to get the entire gear set, there were some people that did, and for those that did earn the whole set, it was a set of gear that's potentially been long forgotten since, but it was also a gear set that even while Advanced Warfare was the current title, not all that many people had, so with it being something that so few had, makes it pretty rare in the grand scheme of things. Moving on to our third thing here, we're gonna keep moving on in the progress of time, moving on next to Black Ops 3, and for this one, we're gonna be taking a look at a calling card once again that, in the grand scheme of things, I guess not many people may care all that much for, but it was something that took a lot of time and dedication to, and not all that many people out of the player base of Black Ops 3 ended up ever getting. That being the 100%er calling card in Black Ops 3. This was for completing all multiplayer challenges within Black Ops 3, and if you take a look at it, that was just a sheer massive amount of challenges to do. You ended up having to do every single challenge, including the Mastery challenges, all your weapon challenges. I'm not entirely sure if the Dark Ops challenges were necessary. I know that I've seen people get the 100%er without the Fresh Start Dark Ops challenge, but all the other ones were completed, so I don't know if you have to complete all of them, but regardless, you still have to do every challenge in the game, maybe save for an asterisk on that final one. But included in that, you could play for a ton of time, but never even realize that there are some pretty crazy challenges out there you'd still need to complete. So even if you ended up playing every single game mode, you ended up using every single weapon, there are still some things that you had to do that were totally unconventional for players that just went and grinded the game out. So that said, you had to complete every single challenge here for this in multiplayer, and for me specifically, I don't know if I would say this is the most overall worth reward here for this. I did like the idea of giving a 100% completion challenge reward, but in terms of just the calling card and what it looks like, of course, you put on all that work, maybe you want a little bit more here for this. This actually was a little bit updated at one point during the life cycle of Black Ops 3 as well. If I'm not mistaken, it's now an animated camo on top of it, but it is the sole reward here for the 100%er challenge. Next up, we're gonna go over to Call of Duty World War II, of course, the current title, but it is something that I've seen a ton of people ask me this as of recently, and since it actually came out, but not really people have all that much of an answer, and to my knowledge, not all that many people actually even have this item. We're gonna take a look at the Sanguine Skull within Call of Duty World War II, located in the Special Weapon Charms category. Now this, when you take a look at it, is a pretty awesome one, and it was actually added in right before we ended up getting an event, if I'm not mistaken, within Call of Duty World War II. So a lot of people thought this would be the next community challenge at that time. We end up getting it as a community challenge reward, but it actually comes down to being DLC 3, The Tortured Path, a reward for completing the Darkened Path, which is essentially that next step in just attempting the Tortured Path. So in order to do this, you'd end up having to get to the max Bureau rank within the Tortured Path. So then once you were max Bureau rank, you ended up having the Darkened Path mode unlocked, to which then you could end up launching up the Tortured Path, and in the first round, you'd end up seeing a glowing red skull, and once you ended up activating that skull, it would initiate the Darkened Path. So the Darkened Path actually increases all around difficulty, increases the zombie spawn rate, it has a higher boss zombie health, and even more spider zombies spawn in on the objective rounds. So once you do that and complete everything and you beat that on the Darkened Path, a much harder version of just the standard map for DLC 3, that's when you'd end up unlocking the Sanguine Skull. So it's got a little bit more of a twist to it than just regularly completing the map and Easter egg there. So hopefully I explained it well enough, or hopefully I myself didn't even confuse myself on the explanation to where it makes absolutely no sense, or I'm slightly off the mark, but that's something in which it's a little bit tougher to get this, and as such, not many people really go into it. And being that it's not really advertised all that much, the weapon charm itself kind of lays dormant there, just like it does for myself, still in a locked state in that special category. So if you guys want to try it, of course you can get your piece of history as one of the rarer items in World War II. Now for our final two pieces, we're going to actually jump back to Black Ops 2 for both of these, because they were two limited edition time things dealing with the same title. One, of course, ending up coming a little bit earlier on, and then one a little later. That said, let's start out with the Black Ops 2 pre-order calling card for the MQ-27 Dragonfire. Now this was something that, again, calling cards might not be your cup of tea per se, but it is something that still was very limited time. I think the redemption time period was only about a month to 2 months and was only available from one retailer, that being GameStop. Now, to my knowledge, I don't think that Game in the UK and elsewhere had this as well. I'm pretty sure it was only just GameStop had this, but it was something you had to pre-order Black Ops 2 from GameStop very early on. It wasn't one of those things where, say, July, August, and September, if you pre-ordered, you end up getting it. It was one of the original pre-order bonuses for Black Ops 2. And for those that did take advantage of this, you ended up getting a cool little calling card, and it didn't really change all that much, of course, like we see with some camos and everything added in later on for pre-order incentives later on down the line, but it was something that, in terms of rarity, has a little less quantity out there for the relative public. Now, there was actually something that kind of did take away from this a little bit. There were some workarounds where you could end up going in and redeeming it online, even though not by pre-ordering. You could end up tricking, I think it was GameStop's website or something like that, but you ended up getting a redemption code as is. So you or somebody you know may have done this and gotten this and beat the system on that one, but for the specific way that it actually was earned, it was pre-order only very early on, only from GameStop. But the final thing that I want to talk about deals with Black Ops 2 in a sense of the actual content, but it wasn't for Black Ops 2. This was a pre-order camo for Call of Duty Ghosts. It was a very limited time one, and of course was once again only pre-order available from GameStop and maybe Game in the UK. But while it's not as rare as other camos that we've talked about in the past, it was still available for a very limited amount of time, and I think that you could end up the redemption site closed on August 31st, so therefore you only had about a month to 2 months to actually pre-order it and then redeem your code as well. So there's a small window of time that allowed you to get this camo, and personally I think this was probably my favorite camo within Black Ops 2, or one of them, even though myself at the time of its launch wasn't the biggest fan of Ghosts. I still think the Ghost camo was one of my favorite things out of that whole branding, plus with Black Ops 2. That said, I guess we're going to conclude this list of 6 of the rarest items in Call of Duty history. Of course, we'll be taking a look at and examining more of these as time progresses. Maybe make this a weekly thing, because there's a lot of things, again, that I have just in a notepad right here on my desktop that are ones you probably forgot about, some you may never have even known existed, and all things in between. So that said, I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Is there anything in particular that 1, you may have out of these, 2, you'd like to add to this list and future lists, and 3, if you guys would like to see more of a follow-up here for this kind of stuff on other rare items within Call of Duty history. I'm always fascinated by this stuff, so I would love to, but if you guys want to see it, let me know in the comments. That said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you stay up to date with all things regarding rare items in Call of Duty, Black Ops 4 and World War II content, updates, news, best class setups, tips, tricks, all that good stuff we got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, getting a little more active over there as well. So that link is also in the description for you guys if you want to check it out. But all that said and out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.